Hello!
What's going on, MDF?
To listeners and viewers, welcome back to Mostly Dead Folks, the history podcast about lives of the past and the way we keep them alive today. I almost missed that one. Anyway, I am your co-host, Joshua Stern.
I'm Brian Dunn.
And today we are bringing back, by popular demand, The Wheel. There it is. I don't know how you're hearing us right now because our microphone has gone missing. So I don't know. This is just obviously a sign of our omnipotence that we don't need a microphone.
There you go.
We don't need a microphone. We don't even need one mic. We need no mics.
No.
How have you been? It's been a couple weeks.
It's been good. We were just talking about taxes and the frustration of that.
It was
that
great.
Time of year.
It's fantastic. Nothing I enjoy more than giving my money into an endless bottomless pit.
Yes, it's the happiest time of year.
It's the most
wonderful time of the year. There you go.
Well, those of you, yes, we're going to do the wheel. The way this works is we're going to spin the wheel. We have a couple of categories that correspond to these numbers. We're going to do 2 categories each and just see how this goes. The goal is to have very little preparation here and just kind of respond off the cuff to see how it goes. There you go. Well, one of us clearly did something. One of us was a good student in school. One of us wasn't. Take a wild guess who it was. But I guess I'll spin first this time, and we'll see how this goes.
I'll hold it for you.
All right, here we go. Yep. We got number, is that a 4?
4.
All right, Brian.
4. So 4 is random presidential story you want to highlight.
Ooh,
random. First one that pops in your head. Random presidential story you want to highlight.
Random presidential story. I mean, there are so many. I'm probably going to go with Eisenhower. Dwight Eisenhower. This is a sort of what's the word I'm looking for? An apocryphal. That's not what, how do you say it? Apocryphal. It's like a word of mouth story. I know the word. I can spell
Oh, okay. I know what you mean.
It's a word of mouth story, but it's one of my favorites about Eisenhower.
Uh-huh.
Eisenhower, a renowned golfer, and he had been playing at Augusta, the Masters. We just got through the Masters, and famously there was this one oak tree right near a tee box that every time he hit his drive, it just kept getting knocked down off this oak tree. It kept killing his drive. One day he gets sick of it, and he brings aside a groundskeeper, and he says, hey, listen, son, you got to cut that tree down. And the groundskeeper says to the President of the United States, you are out of line, sir. You are out of line.
Wow.
And I love that story. Not so much, it could have been any president, but the fact that within Augusta, this is a place that it is as close... Hallowed ground. I'm not going to say sacred ground, but it's this hallowed ground where the balance of power, it doesn't matter if you're Condoleezza Rice, who recently became a member. I think she became the first woman to become a member of Augusta, if I'm not mistaken.
Because it was not too long ago that they started to allow women into
Exactly. But it really doesn't matter who you are. No one has the right to dictate the course grounds, even if you are the president of the United States. So that's the first one that came to mind. And I've been thinking about golf, and Eisenhower I've been thinking about a lot recently as well. So that's my random story. Yeah. What do you got?
Mine is, you might know this already, but General Grant, President Grant.
I'm a fan.
Towards the end of his life, he made some bad business deals where he literally goes bankrupt.
Yes.
Do you know where I'm going with this?
Yes, I know. I mean, I know that story. I don't know where you're going.
And so, to add insult to injury, he also develops throat cancer and is dying from all the cigar smoking and whatnot.
Yes.
And so he is deeply concerned that I'm going to die any day now, and I'm going to literally leave my wife, my children with nothing. How are they going to survive? He lost
all his money in this business.
Yeah. You know who helps him out?
Mark Twain?
Mark Twain. Very good, yes. So Mark Twain says, the one thing you still have, presidency is behind you, you're obviously not in the military anymore, the one thing you have is your story. And so I want to publish your memoirs, I'm going to get them published for you, and then that way we can leave your wife and your family something. He literally finishes his memoirs days before he dies.
Right.
And the equivalent of the money in today's money that he's able to leave, because the memoirs are a smash hit.
Yeah.
Very, very popular. $12 million that he was able to, and partially because of Mark Twain. They had a great friendship, the two of them, which is interesting because originally, before he became a celebrated author, Mark Twain loosely joined the Confederacy.
Really?
Kind of interesting.
He
didn't officially. He was
Missouri,
more of like,
right?
he was more with his buddies, and whenever the joke is, whenever they heard gunfire, they would run away. So they were just kind of doing it for fun. but they weren't officially in the Confederacy, but they were.
Well, he was from Missouri.
He was from Missouri.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Kind of, sort of in the Confederacy, sort of not in a way.
So it's, again, an interesting story with Mark Twain popping up. He pops up a lot
of course.
In American history, more than just his novels. But
I remember when those novels were published, or his memoirs were published, that they were also published, I believe, in I think it was Harper's Weekly, and they were published with these illustrations of Grant dying from cancer. And for many Americans, that was the most visible sort of touchstone they had of what cancer looked like. And it became kind of seared in the public memory of just what a cruel illness this is. So Grant, I think, in many ways, quite bravely put his here's a proud man, a general, a man who always projected strength, being willing to show himself vulnerable and wasting away. And who better to capture it than the great Mark Twain? That's a good one. I like that.
Yeah.
So
your turn. My turn.
Yep.
Here we go. So we did 4. So no repeats on 4.
Let's
go.
Let's call it 3.
We'll do 3.
Sure.
So 3 is a rivalry between historical figures that changed history.
Ooh, historical rivalry.
Yes.
Right, you go first.
So I'm going to go. This one, I love this story. It is Theodore Roosevelt and William Howard Taft.
Yes, it's a good one.
Okay, and it's kind of heartbreaking because these two were very close, not only political allies, but friends. But of course, in the election of 1912, Roosevelt comes back because Taft has...
Teddy Roosevelt.
Yes. Taft comes back, Roosevelt comes back, and Taft has been the president for 4 years, and he was literally left with the manual of, basically, I set you on a right course of progressivism, stay on that course, trust busting and that sort of thing. Just don't, go wild.
Don't go rogue.
Don't go rogue, thank you. And Taft did. He kind of went against some of Roosevelt's policies as president. And so the progressive wing of the Republican Party was like, hey, Roosevelt, you need to come back from retirement, from your vacation. He's gone rogue. So he does. He doesn't get the Republican nomination, but that doesn't stop Roosevelt.
Of course not.
Okay, so famously he runs for a third party, in the Bull Moose Party, or the Progressive Party.
The Progressive Party, the Bull Moose, yeah.
Yes. And this was, Roosevelt thought that he actually had a chance in that election, even though I always teach my students third party poison. Third parties have never, we've always been a two-party system.
Right.
I mean, this is, to his credit, the third party finished second place in that election. Taft stays on. He really didn't like the presidency.
Right.
He stayed on just to kind of thwart Roosevelt's bid, but he really did not want to be renominated and didn't care for the presidency. His dream job was to be a Supreme Court justice, which he later achieves.
Imagine that, president and Supreme Chief Justice, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Wow.
So he's in it just to thwart Roosevelt. Roosevelt goes intense on the mudslinging and fat shaming his former buddy and everything, saying he's lazy, all this kind of stuff. Meanwhile, who's cruising the victory is Woodrow Wilson,
hanging out.
And so this is why I like to point out this rivalry, because Taft finishes a distant third, and he's perfectly fine with that. Didn't really care for the presidency. Roosevelt, he's upset because, again, to him the split in the Republican Party that Taft caused led to his defeat and Wilson cruising the victory, and suddenly you have Woodrow Wilson, and again changes history because you've got World War I. Yep. You could have had technically Roosevelt as your president, when those events were starting to unravel. So
it's a remarkable one. And I don't know if you're familiar with the book, The River of Doubt.
Yes.
So
by our girl,
we big fan, Candace
Millard.
Thank you.
Yes.
That's correct. Yeah. So that's a great book for anyone interested in kind of odd history. After this split, Teddy, who had been the poster child for the Republican Party, is ostracized because he's seen as the guy who cost the Republicans the election, and so much so it harms him. It hurts him to see his former friends turn against him. Yeah. So he goes to the Amazon and as part of a sort of a mission to try to bring electricity to this area called the Rio de Duda, the River of Doubt. Right. And he brings his sons along, and all kinds of mishaps. There's malaria, there's poison darts, there's near death of his son Kermit, and now to this day the river is called the Roosevelt River. It's named after him for this moment. So really, really interesting book called The River of Doubt, which connects to that. I'm going to go, there's a couple directions I could go with this one. To your point, I've mentioned this one before, but I'm going to go back to the rivalry between John Quincy Adams and your boy, Andrew Jackson. Yeah. And this in 1824, you mentioned third parties. Now, this is a time where, before the two-party system is really deeply entrenched in America, you had multiple parties. In the 1824 election, there are 4 viable candidates from different parties, and this ends up causing a split in the Electoral College. In the end, after 1824, as you know, no one gets a majority of votes. In that case, the House of Representatives decides, and the House of Representatives in 1824 decides to re-elect John Quincy Adams, despite the fact that Quincy Adams loses the electoral vote and the popular vote to Andrew Jackson. This rivalry, this electoral campaign from 1824 to 1828 is, I would argue, in the context of the times, the most brutal, ugly, and downright nasty campaign, perhaps in American history. I mean, I'm talking even in the era we're in currently. It is by any standards brutal. There's accusations of war crimes towards Andrew Jackson. There's a complete disregarding, or indeed, I would say, really degrading of John Quincy Adams' intelligence. The slogan is "Better Jackson who fights than Adams who writes." This kind of, that really saying to be illiterate is better than to be literate, which I think has cast a long shadow in this country. But this is a downright, there is no love lost between these candidates. And when Lafayette, this is around the time when Lafayette returns to America towards the end of his life. Lafayette, the great general who helps America win the Revolution, while your boy Washington, obviously instrumental. Fair to say, without Lafayette, probably the colonists don't win that conflict. Right. So incredibly important guy. He returns to America in this time period to see how this whole democracy thing, how it's working out. And what he finds, it scares him, because he sees a lot of the same attitudes. This idea of blood in the streets from Jackson supporters, that they view this situation as a great wrong being done to them. And they're talking this very big game about, we're going to march on Washington, we're going to take the heads off the Federalists. And Lafayette's saying, well, this sounds pretty similar to what we just went through in France.
Exactly.
This is getting kind of scary.
Reign of terror.
But Lafayette eventually concludes with, when he sees the election in 1828 happen, Jackson wins, everything is peaceful, there is a peaceful transition of power. He concludes that Americans will always settle their differences electorally rather than through violence.
Yes, and we always have
Well, almost always, one would say. Almost always, historically. Generally, I would agree with your sentiment.
Okay.
Let's say 97% of the time we have.
We're on our 47th presidency. Yes. 46 out of 47 times.
It's not bad.
But going back, we've got the corrupt bargain, and so that's something that's important to that story. Is of course Henry Clay, who finishes third in that disputed election. He says, "Hey," and I think we've talked about this maybe in an episode. "Hey, I want to be Secretary of State, and I am." The Speaker of the House, I can help convince the House to vote for you, John Quincy, even though you are trailing Jackson, but I want that job in your administration. So again, that's the corrupt bargain, which adds fuel to the flames for the Jackson supporters saying, wait, what, if you like Hamilton, what happened in the room where it happened?
The room where
this was very much what, deals being made behind closed doors.
I agree.
So
good rivalries.
Yeah. All right, your turn again.
Number one.
What
we got?
We kind of touched upon this before. Conspiracy theory you hate the most.
Oh, we talked about that
so
one last week.
we can do something other than Helen Keller.
Okay, we know yours is Helen Keller. I'm going to say... God, there's a lot I really, really don't like. I'm going to go more modern. I'm going to say, going back to one of the original kind of modern conspiracy theories, Pizzagate. I don't know if you're familiar with Pizzagate. So this is...
I was just bringing this up to a student. And they're like, what?
Yeah, 2017. This was a man goes into a pizza shop in Washington, D.C., armed with an assault rifle.
Oh!
And comes in... Yeah.
I thought you were talking about the Chuck E. Cheese Pizzagate.
No!
Where they were reusing half-eaten pieces of pizza and okay. All right.
See, that's...
now yours is a little darker.
Yeah.
All right.
No, that Pizzagate, let's face it, is probably real. It's probably fair. Sorry, Chuck E. Cheese. I don't know. I have no proof to back that on. But no, the Pizzagate I'm referring to, it's a really important one to understand because at this pizza shop in D.C., a man goes in 2017 with an assault rifle, I believe it's 2017, and starts demanding, where are the children? Where are the kids? I know you're hiding them. And the people are like, what are you talking about? And he had been in this world, there's conspiracy theory that stated that the Democratic Party, specifically Hillary Clinton, were hiding children inside of this one pizza restaurant in Washington, D.C., near the Capitol.
How do I not remember that?
And trafficking them. And this guy had taken it to point. He's firing his gun into the ceiling, and thank the Lord, no one's hurt.
It was just a random pizza place.
And then, but that had been the center. I think it was called Cosmos Pizza. I could be wrong. They were at the center of this theory. Of course, the people who worked there had no idea what was going on. And spoiler alert, there were no children being held. There was pizza dough. There was some pepperoni. There were no children.
So there wasn't even the Pillsbury Doughboy.
No Pillsbury Doughboy.
Not even hit.
And so this guy, he gets arrested, and he was later reached for comment in jail, and he made some comment to the effect of, "I probably should have done my research, huh?" Something along those lines. So he admitted that he just. But it's easy, right? It's easy. I mean, I wouldn't go and do that, but you can see this is kind of early days, 2017.
Yeah.
You can see how conspiracy theories do proliferate and the damage they can cause. So yeah, I'll go Pizzagate. Not a big fan.
I'm not going to do Helen Keller real quick, but the one that drives me
something.
up a wall, especially we just had the Artemis 2 mission, is the moon landing.
Moon landing.
I shut it down always with this. Okay, is the fact that again it's in the middle of the Cold War, our arch rivals, our enemy was the Soviet Union, the Russians, and for the Russian government to call our government after we did it and say, congratulations, you beat us.
All propaganda, Brian. It's all propaganda.
Come on.
It's all lies.
Because again, if there was a smidge of doubt, why would the Russians concede? Why?
All lies.
Why would they not go out and say exactly this, that this is all lies, this is just all
fake
propaganda, fake, da-da-da. And I'm just so sick of it because, again, I don't know if it's this just generation that we teach. They love conspiracy theories, and this is one of them that they just are so convinced. And now with Artemis 2, you're seeing it all over the internet too. That, this didn't happen. And okay, who's the scientist? Neil deGrasse Tyson. I butchered the name. He is again hates this too because it's like we're shooting these giant rockets up into space. Right. Where did those rockets go? Yeah. Like they just like hang up there. Yeah. They come back down eventually, or the capsule comes back down. So again,
well, Brian, we never saw the rocket land. Sorry, bro. Just to be clear, I'm joking. All right, the moon landing happened. All right, we got time for one more spin.
All right, one more spin.
Spin it.
And you're the chair of the history department. Just thinking about that. All right, 6. Did we do 6?
Oh yeah.
Most underrated president.
Awesome. You go first.
Most underrated president. This guy, he definitely needs recognition, and he's come up recently, actually, by Trump.
Yeah.
He's referenced him. James Monroe.
Big fan.
James Monroe.
Big fan.
And I am a huge fan of him because you were talking about political controversy earlier. James Monroe, our 5th president, American Revolution veteran, he gets elected to 2 terms. And during his time in office, it's known as the era of good feelings.
Yeah.
And
what a misnomer that is.
Partially. Yeah, and again, we do have issues like slavery still going on. Yes. Sectionalism is happening south and north and a little bit of the west. But for the most part, we did not have political controversy. I mean, James Monroe easily cruises to victory both times. We only, arguably, you had one political party back then, so you didn't even have the political division. But James Monroe, again, I think should be recognized because of the doctrine that is attached to his name, the Monroe Doctrine, which was largely written by your boy, John Quincy Adams.
Correct.
But still gets slapped.
For the record, John Quincy Adams is not my boy.
Well, you threw Jackson as my boy.
You mention Jackson all the time.
Okay.
Do you have a tattoo of him somewhere? It's a big old hickory.
Actually,
the old hickory. There's a big stick.
The old hickory. Well, that would be Roosevelt, but sure, there you go.
That's true.
Anyway.
The old hickory stick,
Yeah, so So the Monroe Doctrine, and why this is so important is because Monroe, or Adams as his Secretary of State, said that, look, we're starting to see more and more European influence in this part of the hemisphere. Again, we are still a very, very young nation, that at any point, what's preventing a Britain, what's preventing a Spain or a France from looking up from South America and saying, why don't we just take, North America from the Americans? And so that's what the Monroe Doctrine was. The interesting thing is, we basically tell Europe, stay out of our business, we're going to stay out of yours. And so we really went isolationist during this time, which again lasts pretty much from Monroe all the way to, I would say, 1898, when we get involved in the Spanish-American War and then become an imperial power and whatnot. But for the most part, every president kind of stuck with it. But the funny thing is, it was never an agreement or a treaty signed by Britain or agreed to by Spain. They're like, fine, Monroe, you can shout out in the wilderness, but we're not going to play by that game. But still, it led our foreign policy. And I think Monroe, besides the fact that, again, he's leading us through this time called the Era of Good Feelings, which comes after the Second War with the British, the War of 1812. Okay, we're at peacetime. Yeah. We're not involved in war. There's political calm. Yeah. And so I wanted to recognize Monroe.
That's fair. Yeah. Totally fair. Yeah. I mean, did you say Monroe Doctrine or Donroe Doctrine?
Oh, geez.
I've been hearing that thrown around.
No,
quite
it's the Monroe Doctrine.
Monroe Doctrine. Lots to choose from here. That's a great choice. I'm going to go, actually, just someone I mentioned earlier, I'm going to go with Eisenhower.
Okay.
I'm going to go Eisenhower just because I think in the context of, never say never. I find it hard to believe we'll ever elect a military general to president again. I find that hard to imagine. Yeah. So, here's a guy who I think he's so important, obviously, for his role in helping end World War II as the Supreme Allied Commander. But I think for a guy who came from a military background to be so outspoken about the horrors of war and the desire to avoid future wars, right. I think is an interesting kind of 180 in terms of his policies. I think for a guy who really valued the importance of the federal system, he made some important steps. Now, granted, I would argue maybe a little bit later than he should have, but if you look at the situation, the Little Rock Nine in Arkansas.
You're going there.
Well, for those people who don't know, we had 9 black students who were trying to attend Little Rock High School during desegregation in 1957. Orville Faubus, who was a great name, who was the governor of Arkansas, brought in the National Guard to block that school and prevent those students from entering in violation of federal law. So Eisenhower actually essentially reclaims the National Guard from Faubus, takes them under federal control, and orders the integration. That is an incredible, I mean, that is, if you're a southern state, you see this as a huge unconstitutional overreach of government power, but given the sheer enormity of that moment, I really respect Eisenhower for doing what I think most people would agree was the right move to ensure that the law was followed, and that where he got a lot of stick from that, particularly being from Kansas, not too far from the South. So I think that's a really underrated moment. For better or worse, he gave us our sort of modern Pledge of Allegiance with, one nation under God. That all comes from Eisenhower trying to establish America as different from the communists in their sort of atheist approach. He was trying to say, no, in America, we believe in God. And again, whatever you feel about this, I think we have to, when we talk about underrated, overrated, I see Eisenhower's impacts as being underrated, not in a good or bad way, but just I don't think he's given enough sort of attention. Yeah. Obviously, our highway systems, if you drive on any of the interstates.
I-95.
This is a guy, as a Republican, the marginal tax rate in America, I believe, was 90%. We were just talking about taxes. It's not that I have a problem with taxes. I want to know where my taxes are going.
Exactly.
And in this case, the highest taxation in American history went towards building an interstate that connected this massive nation, which has been vital to our economic growth and to our ability to travel and things.
Commerce, but also the Cold War, if we need to mobilize troops, make it easier that way.
And even though I strongly disagree with his approach as it relates to healthcare, the very reason we have employee-sponsored healthcare as opposed to a Medicare for all system is also Eisenhower. Now, depending on where you stand stand on the political aisle. You either think this is a great thing or a terrible thing.
Right.
Regardless, Eisenhower, in a time when the Cold War, he believes very strongly that Americans should be more tied to employee or employer provided health care rather than a government social safety net.
Right.
Now, this may make him public enemy number one for those who support a Medicare for All system today. However, the fact that you and I receive our health care from our employer, along with millions of Americans, you can tie that directly back to Eisenhower. Whether you think it's good or bad, I think is irrelevant here. That is a tremendously impactful part of American society that you can draw directly back to Eisenhower. I think for all of those reasons and many, many more, I think Eisenhower's really underrated.
I think I like your point about I don't see us having a military figure. I mean, historically we had a lot.
Sure.
We had Washington, Jackson, Zachary Taylor, Grant that we mentioned earlier.
I think H.W. was the last person to serve who was president. He wasn't a general, certainly, but I think he was the last member to serve.
In terms of the last president,
to serve in the military.
W was reserves.
Yes.
Or
I'm not sure about W, but I know his H.W. served in World War II.
Yeah, but in terms of like a general.
Don't see
because the interesting thing I wanted to say was that sometimes with these figures, these generals, like a Grant, like an Eisenhower, politically you don't know where they stand either, too. So I know that was kind of like interesting that, are they a Republican, are they a Democrat? And
one final thing I'll say about Eisenhower, just for me, when I think about leadership, now this is before he was president, but famously, this is the guy who helped organize the D-Day invasion, the Allied invasion of Normandy, France. And there's a great document that I share with my students. There's a message he gave to the troops right before of, you're going to do this. It's going to be tough, but you're going to win. It's going to be great. But privately, don't know what that. Oh, we got a beeping here.
Yep.
But privately, he had no idea how it was going to go, and he writes this great letter that says, it's called "In Case of Failure," where essentially he was preparing for this mission to fail. And if you read that letter, he basically says the troops did all they could. Any reason for failure, it's all on me.
Oh, wow.
It's my bad.
Wow.
I'm responsible for it.
Oh.
So for me, that's what leadership looks like.
Nice.
You defer credit when things go well, and when things go badly, you fall on the sword.
Absolutely.
So for me, Eisenhower in that regard, tremendously underrated by current generations. I think that's all we got.
Great episode. Another Wheel episode. So if you like this, let us know, comment. Definitely subscribe if you haven't already.
I would say thank you to our friend and benefactor Andrew for the wheel. It's fantastic stuff. And that's all we have. We will see you next time. I'm Joshua Stern.
I'm Brian Dunn.
Thank you for watching and listening. Mostly Dead folks. We'll see you next time.
Take care.
Take care.